Okay, my name is Roland Ngong. I am a conference interpreter. I've been on the job since 1974, some 45 years therefore. I became interested because I come from a country which is bilingual, English and French, and I thought I needed to acquaint myself a lot more with the other language. I'm basically English speaking, so I wanted to get acquainted with the French. And so I went to secondary school, to high school, to university, basically to learn French, get acquainted with it. Then I went to professional school, Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., USA. Came back home after, and I got involved in interpretation, practical professional interpretation. My first contact with professional interpreting was somewhat of a disaster because I was so afraid, I was so tense, I was so anxious. But subsequently, I was lucky to work with people who were more accommodating of my weaknesses. And so that's how I cleared the first hurdles. Then at some point, I decided that I didn't want to work for the Cameroon Civil Service because initially I worked at the office of the president as one of his interpreters. Then I quit, became what we call a freelance interpreter. That was for about 5-6 years. Then I joined the Organization for African Unity. At the Organization of African Unity, I was the coordinator of interpretation. I was also one of the interpreters attached to the office of the Secretary General of the OAU, who is the chief executive of that organization. I spent about 10-11 years with the Organization of African Unity, and I got recruited by the UN to work with the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. That was some of that experience. While I was at the OAU, we dealt essentially with political issues. At the time, we talked about the decolonization of the continent. We talked about the campaign against the apartheid rule in South Africa. We talked about issues connected with the refugees in particularly Southern Africa, West Africa. Southern Africa because of the fallout from South Africa, Mozambique, Angola, and then West Africa, we also had the Portuguese decolonization in places like Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, etc. So that was the political dimension to my work. Then I subsequently joined the UN, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. It's essentially a court where you have the basic setup of a court. You have the registry, you have the office of the prosecutor, you have the defense counsel, and then the judges, of course. So it was a totally different experience where you had witness testimony, examination, cross-examination, and then subsequently judgment. I spent about 12 years with the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and I retired from the United Nations about 10 years ago, and now I went back to freelance. I love this job for two reasons. The first one is the intellectual challenge. Every interpreter would tell you that usually we prepare our work, but when you walk into the booth, you don't really know what you will be getting at some point. And you pray that the person who starts the meeting does it in a way that you develop confidence in yourself so that you get more secure as the meeting progresses. Then I like it, one, because of the intellectual challenge. I also like it, and it is essentially because of that I like this job, the independence in it, your ability to say, no, I don't want to work for you, particularly if you're a capable professional, if you're competent in your area, and if you have a full mastery of your job. You know, you don't want any stupid fellow to be dictating anything to you. So you say, no, I'm not going to work for you. And you walk away from it. Some other guys are those who have respect for you, who know the terms under which you work, and who are willing to cooperate so as to make you produce a proper job. So that's why I like this job. What do I tell the young interpreters? I would tell them, I would send them a message which I would put in about 4 or 5 very brief words, or not words, statements. The first one is make sure you convey the message, because that's the most important thing. If you fail to convey the message, you're wasting your time. And how do you know that you have conveyed the message? You know that you have conveyed the message when those, that is your end user, the audience to whom you're talking, are able to engage in a meaningful and constructive exchange of views amongst themselves. That's one, the message. The second one is the fluency in what we call your target language. Now, once you are fluent in your target language, then your audience is satisfied. They have confidence in you. Thirdly, you have to have the mastery of the language so that they trust that what you're saying is actually the real thing. Finally, you have to have the demeanor so that you don't convey uncertainty to your audience. Finally, what is my message? This is still a very exciting job. There are thousands of interpreters in Europe, but they all have jobs. But Europe is just a tiny part of Africa. So there's a lot of jobs, opportunities in Africa. And Africa is opening up with the various investments, the economic development, some of the political changes also, and the fact that there is a greater need for clear, precise, and reliable information. And you can only get it from a professional who is properly trained. You don't have all these half-baked, witch doctors who occasionally come into this profession because they know 1 or 2 languages, and then they say, okay, I'm an interpreter or I'm a translator. These are all, sorcerers, but we don't want to insult our profession in that way. Thank you.